Good evening. It's Monday night, and we're looking at this storm as it's getting ready to cross over. I think they said the west side, the smallest part of Cuba. Okay, many of you grew up and have lived here the majority of your life, so this isn't really for you. You guys know what you're doing. It's for the new people that have moved down to Florida that have no idea what to expect and what to do about it. And again, understand I'm no expert, but I know the basic stuff that I can talk to you about. But look up the Weather Channel, look up 15, or I think it's 15 things that are necessary if the power's out, because we're probably going to lose power. Regardless of where you're at in the state, the majority of the state will lose power once enough water comes down. Things are going to short out. That means TVs, things like that. It's not a big deal. Have battery backups, have flashlights and stuff that you can charge now. Get all your stuff charged now. Another big thing to remember is fill your cars up with gas. It may be a little crazy out there in the lines, but listen, your car is a charging station. It could be that this storm rolls over us in 12 hours. They can't say specifics because they don't know specifics. It could be that this storm rolls over the lower coast of Cuba and dissipates. It's possible. But because it's in this warm water area, the biggest possibility is that it's going to increase in power and size. So, with that in mind, it's going to come towards us in Florida, and it looks like possibly right around the Tampa area. So, watch if they say evacuate. That's up to you. Evacuate. It wouldn't be a bad idea. It's probably going to be storm surges and floods. The coastline, the water line will raise. There's last I heard, I think it was 10 feet. But so if you don't feel comfortable, look at the way to get out of here, which way to go. Don't go running in towards where the storm is. I know Florida's kind of limited in that respect, but you'll be ahead of it if that's the way you want to go. Some people might try and head down south. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because the other thing too you've got to realize is they're always focused on the eye, and this is interesting. But out of that eye, there's this big part that surrounds it that goes out 100 miles in radius, maybe more, and that's where the winds are ripping around this eye. And if you happen to be, which I've been a couple of times, in the path of the eye, and say your house is here and the eye moves over, there's this point. This wind's been whipping around and whipping around for the last 12 hours, 10 hours, sometimes 24, sometimes 48, even longer. But this wind's whipping around and you're just watching things. The eye passes over you and it opens up to this beautiful blue sky like nothing. You go outside and you're like, oh my God. And then comes the other side. And now the wind's going the other way. So, point of that is when you tie things down, when you move things, don't think if you put them here, then the wind's going to break them and that'll be fine. Because then the wind's coming back the other way. Projectiles, get up as everything that you can out of your yard, put it away, stack it away, store it away somewhere where it can't be picked up by the wind, because anything can be used as a projectile, even sheets of metal, plywood, things like that, and they could be harmful. Of course, cats and dogs, you're going to want to start bringing them in, keeping them in from now on until this storm is over. Battery backup is important. Throw as much frozen or throw as much water bottles and water containers as you can in the freezer, because if you lose power, you can put those in your coolers to keep whatever it is you need to keep cool. And hopefully you've realized that you're going to need coolers, but coolers are a good idea. If you've got a generator, great. Another thing too would be remember to fill up your bathtub, fill up your sinks, things like that, to where it won't drain out, because that you can use to flush your toilets. Okay, if you have a pool, great. Go grab a bucket out of that and flush your toilets with that. But the septic system will still work going out. You may not have water coming in, and that's always a possibility too. And also too, you fill up your car with gas, remember you've always got that to charge your things like your phones and stuff like that, that you'll be able to keep up with everything. But there may come a point where the towers go down, and that's always a possibility. So if you happen to have a weather radio, it's great. If you happen to have a walkie-talkie that picks up weather radio stations, that's great. If not, within a couple of days, everything's going to be back to normal to an extent. I mean, in the sense that the storm will be gone and we can start cleaning up. There's so much that's going to be going on over the next few days. Don't panic. If you plan on staying, it's a humbling sight to live through. It's a humbling thing to live through, because you'll see that there's nothing that can stop this force. You're at its mercy in every way. And find whatever would be the center room of your house, because that'll be the safest, just like if it's a tornado in that respect. If the shingles get ripped off and water starts coming in, your best place is going to be into a room where there's no windows, and that's going to be your safest place. Will it be perfect? No. Do you have to bring a mattress and cover yourself like a tornado? No. Just be smart, be prepared. It's a devastating thing in so many ways. The wind factors, where they're saying that it's going to be 130, 140 mile an hour winds, that's a major thing that you have to pay attention to, and where you're at on the coastline when those high winds come in. We went through Andrew, which was back years ago, but it hit Miami. And we lived out in South Redlands area. And my parents watched their 40-foot long motorhome. Their 40-foot motorhome, what was a Holiday Rambler, and it was rolling across the yard, because that's how bad the winds get. They watched, when we went out after the storm, steel I-beams that held up the big billboard signs all over, the state. So they have those giant steel I-beams, and then the billboard mounted on top of it. The steel I-beams were bent. There was one section I went through where the trees were all perfectly cut at like 8 feet. Just totally capped every tree. So again, it's something to be aware of. It's something that if you prepare, like I said, it's going to be a couple of days. It could be longer. It depends on when this storm gets out into the Gulf. Is it going to slow down? These are all the predictions that they can't make because they don't know, and nobody knows. Like I said, it could break up after Cuba. 99% of me says, 98% of me says it's not going to do that. It's going to probably develop. Will it develop into a Cat 4 or a Cat 5? The winds start getting really bad after a Cat 3. And the idea of the winds, I'm sure you all have had wind, and wind's not a big deal to you in a sense, but this is different. This is sustained winds with gusts. So if they say 90 mile an hour, that's a sustained wind. That's going to be 12, 24, 48, 72 hours sustained wind with gusts up to 120, 150 or something like that. But it's those sustained winds that just drive at any little area they can find to open up. Just make sure you've got everything set. You've got food that you can eat that doesn't have to be cooked, because if you don't have electricity, unless you've got a stove or a grill or something like that, make sure you've got water. Freeze as much as you can. Make sure you've got some type of drink system set up where if it's, you can't really do soda, so juices or something, but fruits, vegetables, any type of food that is not really quickly perishable, but and coolers, of course, with ice, but crackers, sandwich stuff, things like that. Just be prepared. It's an experience. If you go through it, you'll see what I mean at the end of it. It's an experience. And then after 90% of the time, especially where I've been in my life in parts of Florida, it's a beautiful thing because neighbors all come together and they start cleaning things up, the streets and the branches out of the way, and people come out of nowhere with chainsaws and cut trees down for you. And I think everybody will be fine. If it's saying evacuate and you're uncomfortable, evacuate. Don't wait. I mean, you're a grown adult. You have the right to make your own decisions. I'm just giving you my, whatever you want to call it, of the storm and what I think is possible. It's not a game. It's not, I mean, I'm sure coming from the north, you probably have seen snowstorms and ice storms. I went through an ice storm up in Maine when I lived up there in 90 something, and that was an interesting thing in itself. But tornadoes, floods, wherever you come from, earthquakes. This is what Florida gets. We don't get them every year. We've been lucky for the last few years. There's always that prediction that there's that one big one out there, but you know, cross your fingers, it never shows. But just be smart. Really, be smart. I know the stores are crazy, but go in and get what you can. I know the gas stations are crazy, but go fill up and stuff. I know if you've got an electric car, charge it up, keep it on charge until and if we lose power. It's if anybody needs, you know my email. I'd be happy to respond in any way I can. Welcome to Florida.